All praise and glory to God. The passage that we have for the Lenten reflection today is from the Gospel of St. Mark, chapter 9, verse 31 to 37. The synopsis of this passage is the second foretelling of Jesus about his death and resurrection, and the argument among his disciples as to who is the greatest. There are three important messages that Jesus is teaching us through this passage. Moving on to the first message. By his foretelling of his death and resurrection, Jesus is showing us by example how we need to surrender our lives to the will of the Father. Jesus is being handed over into human hands to be crucified, and yet he is willingly accepting the will of the Father without any questioning. As followers of Jesus, we too are expected to surrender to the will of the Father and accept the plan that God has for us in our lives. Many a times, we find it difficult to accept the will that God has for us. In such times, we need to trust the plan that God has for us and surrender our lives into His hands. Moving on to the second message that we are learning from this passage, Jesus is changing the question of who is the greatest to how to become the greatest. The shift is from the question who to how. The question who has a flavor of pride and competition in it. When you ask the question who, the answer is just one person. Rather, Jesus is teaching us that we all need to be the greatest by becoming the least and the servant of all. That is why Jesus is calling all his 12 disciples together and teaching them how to become the greatest. As followers of Jesus Christ, we all need to strive to become the greatest. Greatness is a level that we all need to achieve and not just one person. Coming to the third message that Jesus is teaching us is how to be the greatest. Jesus is teaching us that we need to be the least and servant of all to be the greatest. Jesus is showing us with the example of a child who has no power and no authority in the society that we should be able to accept the least of the society. We would be able to accept people with no power and no authority in the society only when we become humble. God can dwell only in a humble heart. And when God dwells in us, we automatically become the greatest by the power of the God in us. So this is the call for us, the call to be humble. During this Lenten season, let this be the change in us, a change in heart to surrender our lives and accept the will of the Father, a change in mind to shed our superiority complexes and to become humble. May God bless us and fill us with His grace to follow His teachings. Wish you all a blessed and grace-filled season of life.